I currently have a ton of videos that I'm super behind on, and honestly, I'd rather give those focus than getting sidetracked with Steven Universe content. However, since 6 new episodes just recently came out, and my thoughts on these episodes are still fresh in my mind, I'm gonna go ahead and commit to some reviews, but they will be relatively short and probably more ranty than usual. Enough with a preamble though, let's just get to it. What were my thoughts on the episode Dewey Wins? I did not like it. At all. Despite the social link between Steven and Connie getting reversed, and Nanafwa replacing Dewey as mayor, events that conceptually should hold a decent amount of magnitude to them, the episode still somehow managed to feel very unnecessary. Steven being oblivious and naive about why Connie would be upset is understandable. It would have been far more understandable a few seasons ago, considering he's now 14 and has had so many life-changing events that should cause him to mature. At this point, you just hope he'd have a bit more common sense and the ability to understand the perspectives of others, especially considering that he's an empath and all, but apparently he's still gotta work on that. Like, Steven, you've got a lot of emotional growth to do. I almost feel like Steven is going a bit backwards in terms of maturing based on what happens in these 6 new episodes. Anyway, while the scenario is mostly understandable, I was a bit surprised at the sheer degree of obliviousness Steven was made to have by the writers. This was not normal obliviousness, this was advanced obliviousness. The entire episode rested on him remaining absolutely clueless until he learned his lesson through some other completely unrelated adventure, which in my opinion was a really uninteresting and contrived route to take when it comes to character development. Though calling what happens an adventure is not actually accurate, adventures are usually fun. This was more of a boring slog where Steven decides Mayor Dewey must stay the mayor of Beach City at all costs against his opponent Nanafwa. Steven thinks Dewey is only facing opposition due to the recent alien abductions which Steven considers his fault, and thus Dewey's problems are Steven's responsibility. The dots connect, but wow, Steven, you really lack an understanding of how elections work and why people are generally unsatisfied with their government. This whole episode is really forcing us to reduce your intelligence way down there, because it doesn't exactly take a genius to realize that Dewey is not a good mayor. He's essentially a child-friendly version of Mayor Quimby from The Simpsons, and Steven, why is it that you want that for Beach City? Yeah, you guys have somewhat of a history and are friends, but you're also friends with Nanafwa, and she is a good person too. So to me, it still felt odd for Steven to be so blatantly on Dewey's side, even if Steven does feel that he is the cause of the fallout. So yeah, Steven ends up being 100% behind Dewey to win it, but his blind support in the current mayor really should have diminished, however, when Dewey states he'll be sure to replace the donut boy rather than, actually caring about Lars's well-being, and where he is, and how to get him back. At this point, Steven should be disappointed in Dewey, rather than merely being disappointed that Dewey made a bad political gaffe. Like, seriously, what a horribly shitty thing to say that lacks every iota of empathy. But here's what really annoyed me about this episode. The grief Lars's parents are experiencing over their missing son is far more interesting and deserves far more attention than what it got. The grief of Martha and Dante Barriga is used merely as a political prop and then segued into some bad jokes. Why would the writers just ignore this aspect of the story that has actual weight behind it? Connie and Steven's squabble is but a speck relative to the emotional pain the Barrigas must feel. Is that sort of content too serious and hard to write, Crooniverse? I mean, tackling that pertinent issue would certainly require effort and finesse, unlike the highly basic and bland concept you decided to go with for this episode's premise. It honestly astounded me that Steven never even ended up talking to Lars's parents whatsoever. He claims he'll catch up to Sadie, who splits from him and heads to them, but there's no indication he actually did that, considering he texts Connie that he has to help Dewey ASAP right afterward. Sadie had to talk to the Barrigas off-screen. Apparently, it's not important enough to bother featuring. I think there could have easily been a whole episode that consisted of nothing but Steven, Sadie, and the Barrigas talking about Lars. Instead, we don't even know what Sadie told the Barrigas, we have no idea what Steven's relationship with them is now like. Do they blame him? Do they not? I don't fucking know, because apparently the show doesn't care to establish that. To make it worse, When Dewey basically insults Lars by treating him as disposable, Steven continues to stand 100% behind him. This should make the Barrigas even more resentful towards Steven, because it's like he took their son away and is now spitting in their face about it. I can't get over how we're supposed to ignore Steven's relationship to Lars' parents entirely, as if it's something that doesn't matter. For a show all about resolving conflicts by crying about it, I can't think of a more egregious way to miss the ball. Parental pain over a missing child was used as a political prop and then tossed aside in an episode which focuses on Steven learning something extremely obvious by helping a washed-out mayor lose an election. What the hell, Crewniverse? What the hell? There's certainly been episodes of Steven Universe that I would call boring, but few would I call downright frustrating. The episode Dewey Wins was excruciatingly frustrating and emotionally tone-deaf. Just an awful, awful episode.